to just play it. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40! Can't wait! Let's go!
I still get hyped during that. I still get hyped during the intro. You play to win the game. Welcome back to another episode of Sideline to Sideline. I am your handsome host, the NFL genius Gene Walzak, and my co-hosts are right next to me, the Prince of Production from Sports Empire Network. They got the king, Kyle Edwards. How you feeling tonight, Kyle?
I'm doing well. Ready for another weekend of NFL action. I'm just loving sports right now. Even with my team struggling, but I just can't get enough of it. So I'm ready for tonight. Could be an interesting.
Yeah. We're going to talk about your team struggling because there's a lot of things going on in the New England Patriots. It sounds to me like there might be a little brouhaha happening in New England, but I'm glad that you're still loving sports. Most fans, they just give up on sports when their team's out of it, but not Kyle Edwards. The Prince of Production is always here. Directly below us, we got the man, THEEGODFREY, the Godfrey, my Birds Deep brother. How you feeling tonight, Godfrey?
Feeling good. I've been waiting for this game all year as an Eagles fan. We would dip into it, 49ers versus Eagles. I haven't been this hyped for an in-season game in a long time. I'm getting like 1990s Eagles versus Cowboys emotions in this one.
Listen, I can't lie to you. I'm there. I'm here with you. I am there. It's going to be a fun game this week. Once again, the Philadelphia Eagles have the game of the week, but we are not there to talk about that yet. We got to talk about what happened last week, some news that are happening. The first thing I want to bring up is I want to ask you guys' opinion on this. Last week's game of the week, Philadelphia Eagles, Buffalo Bills. Left the game. This is not an Eagles podcast. It's not. It feels like it the last few weeks with the Chiefs Eagles, the Bills Eagles, and now the 49ers Eagles. This is not an Eagles podcast, but it is a game of the week. Kyle, what were your thoughts? I know they hated Buffalo Bills. I know you were rooting for the Eagles just like we were because you hate the Buffalo Bills. What were your thoughts on the football game? If you didn't hear it, our thoughts on Birds Deep, myself and D. Godfrey, will kind of reiterate them a little bit. Your thoughts on the biggest game of the week last week?
I feel like it kind of just shows what Buffalo's about, where against top competition, seemingly since they felt like they got robbed against the Chiefs because of the overtime rules and everything like that, it seems like there's like a mental block with Buffalo when it comes to winning in big moments. And I mean, look, I thought, like I said, I thought the Eagles were going to win, so I wasn't surprised by it. But for Buffalo, a team that came into the season with a lot of promise, for them to sit there at 6-6, seemingly having some underlying questions going on in Buffalo more than answers. Because now it looks like the Tre'Davious White and Milano injuries are probably even more impactful than we thought. They still rely on Josh Allen to do everything. Throwing, running, he is their offense. And, I still am going to ride with my prediction from early in the season that they missed the playoffs because of performances like last week. I just don't trust Buffalo right now. And maybe McDermott ends up being the scapegoat at the end of the season, loses his job after they fired the offensive coordinator a couple of weeks ago. Sooner or later, it's going to fall on McDermott, and I don't know if he survives this.
Well, speaking of coaches that survive things, Frank Wright was fired this past week. The Carolina Panthers seem to be rejoiced about Frank Wright. And you know what's funny? Everybody that was part of we wanted C.J. Stroud fan base, Deuce Staley, Josh McCown, they were all fired from the coaching staff. So it seems like Carolina is tired of hearing we told you we wanted CJ Stroud from the coaching staff. Deuce is gone. I could see Deuce signing on back with the Detroit Lions to be an offensive assistant. I could see Frank coming back to Philadelphia. He loves Nick Sirianni, being a senior advisor. Josh McCown, who was looked at as a head coaching candidate, I could see him signing on with somebody to be an offensive assistant. These
Texans.
are 3 good football coaches.
Mm-hmm.
3 good football coaches that are all unemployed right now because they told the ownership, Carolina Panthers, CJ Stroud is going to be better than Bryce Young. What are your thoughts on that? Now, guys, I'm going to have a really crazy opinion on this, so I'd love to hear your opinions first.
I think it's mixed. I mean, I don't know. Is Frank Reich proving to be a good coach? I'm not sure. But I do know that David Tepper is becoming quickly the NFL's worst owner, 6-23, I believe, since he took over. And if you look at franchises that are successful, they have stability. That is not stability to fire a coach in season with the first year of a quarterback that he obviously didn't want. So is he saying that he wasn't working with him and setting him up to fail? Is he saying that Bryce Young can be good still, just with the right guy? And even if that is the case, you just hired this guy, so you should have known that ahead of time, right? So I do think he's quickly becoming one of the league's worst owners. That franchise is a model of instability, and you will not win in the NFL when you are like that. And that's just how it is. You're letting coaches go before the season's over. If you wanted to say he didn't do enough after the season was over and you want to go a different direction, that's fine. I get that. But, what we'll be telling you is what type of coach does he bring in the offseason? Is it someone that is known to work with young quarterbacks? That's what I would be doing if I had a Bryce Young and I still believed him as an owner. Either way, you can't say that the owner and the management were setting up either the quarterback or the coaching staff for success.
I agree.
It's like they brought Frank Reich on to be the coach for whoever the next quarterback was going to be. So if the owner knew Reich felt that passionate about CJ Stroud, why not just take him? Then at least if the two of them don't work out, then you could say, well, obviously you were wrong and we're going to part ways here. I also agree that doing it in season, if I'm a young coach trying to get an opportunity and Tepper calls me and says, hey, come in for an interview, I'm sitting there worrying, like, are you going to be impatient with me? Are you going to give me time to develop a Bryce Young, fix the other issues with the team, like the old line, the wide receivers? Do I get a fair shake? And I don't know how many of these young candidates are going to trust Tepper's word right now. So I think that's a bigger problem Carolina has.
I think the owner is terrible. I think David Tepper is a terrible owner. That's not, but I absolutely 100% unequivocally agree with the firing of Frank Reich. And I'm going to explain to you why. When you, and I mean this, right? When you've already made the decision, there's nothing I can't stand more than the milk's already spilled, right? We got to deal with the cleanup. I don't think that David Tepper, they already drafted Bryce Young. CJ Stroud is not a Carolina Panther.
Mm-hmm.
You got to deal with that now. For all the people that were in Carolina that said Bryce Young, no, CJ Stroud, yes, you got to remove them all because the doubt's got to go away. You got to get somebody that can buy in, change their scheme. The mistake made by Carolina was not getting the quarterback that the coach wanted. Don't hire him if you're going to force who you want on him. I think Bryce Young has the ability, has the arm talent, has the athleticism to be a successful quarterback in the NFL. And I think that Frank Wright was like, well, I told you C.J. Stroud was going to be elite. You don't have him. That's it. It's over. You can't get him back. You got to make the decision. You don't have a number one pick this year. That's going to Chicago. You can't cry over spilt milk. You got to make changes. I agree with him. I would hire a coach that fully is invested in Bryce Young because that's your guy. Mm-hmm. Develops an offense around that guy. Gets an offensive line to protect for that guy. It's truth. Sorry. I love Frank Wright. I love Deuce Staley. I love Josh McCown. It's not the point. Got to have the right people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that Reich should have been fired, but I'm just with the mindset that it made no sense hiring him if you weren't going to take the guy he wanted. So I do agree with you there. So it's just a dumb situation all around.
Yeah. All right, so next topic, and I got to bring it up. I really do. It's not one of those things that Aaron Rodgers eyes earlier return. Anything is possible. Apparently, he wants to come back in 2 weeks. Practice window's open. He thinks he can come back versus Houston next week. I cannot even understand what ayahuasca this man has taken to allow him to come back from a torn Achilles. People are even questioning whether the Achilles was even ruptured. That's a joke. Like, right? Aaron Rodgers has been very vocal, talking like, are you kidding me? The picture's out there on Twitter of my ruptured Achilles. Are you out of your mind? But this man is planning on making a comeback just 3.5 months after tearing his Achilles tendon. Maybe 3 months to the date. They have to win this week, though. Godfrey, your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers possibly coming back next week?
I think it's a lot of hocus pocus. I mean, I think it's stupid. I think it's they're 4-7. So you're either going to have to win out to make the playoffs. Okay. If you do win out, you're at best 10-7. Okay. All right. Let's say you get in, you're the 7th seed at best, maybe 6th seed, probably 7th seed, right? We saw this already with Cam Akers, different position. They brought him back early. Now, he played in the Super Bowl. He got a ring, but it ruined his career. He does not have the same burst, and you need to heal. That is a significant injury. I mean, and he's going to play on the field that, quote unquote, is the turf monster and causes a lot of injuries. So I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's desperation by the Jets to show that they have a plan in place. I think maybe he's doing it to save people's jobs. Alan Lazard was a healthy scratch last week. I mean, what? Nathaniel can't hack it, can only hack it when he's got a quarterback where he's got to carry a clipboard for him because he doesn't know how. They obviously have shown this about for all the good that the Jets have done as far as draft picks and having a good defense. They have shown that they can't come up with a backup plan, and they had no backup plan. There was only one plan A. It was Aaron Rodgers. Tim Boyle should have never been on this team. He's on this team because he's friends with Aaron Rodgers. They should have had – you couldn't have went and got a Josh Dobbs. You couldn't have went and got something else. Come on, man. Like, stop. And they're married to Zach Wilson any way you want to slice it, okay? They're married to him because they drafted him and he didn't develop. Whether it's your fault or not, you still picked him at 2. And I think this is desperation by the Jets coaching staff. And Aaron is buying in because he likes to be the center of attention. I think Aaron could help them. I think he could be good. But to be that old and come back that early from an Achilles injury, I think that, listen, man, I don't know if he's got some kind of special medication going on, but I think it's risky and dumb, and I don't buy it.
It's wild to me. Kyle, your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers possibly coming back next week? He plans on pushing himself Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to see if he can play next week at Houston.
I mean, I don't see the point of it now. Does he think they're going to go on some miraculous run and make the playoffs? Then maybe that's your motivation. I kind of think they're done. They're better off. Like, if he wants to practice or whatever just to test it out, I'm fine. But I don't see the purpose of putting him behind center really right now. Just finish the season with Boyle or whoever you want to throw out there. Let him use the offseason, come back next year, and just start again.
I looked at it, Kyle. They have to go 5-1. They have to be 9-8 to make the playoffs. I looked at it. There's a lot of AFC teams that are falling apart at the seams, right? Cleveland's probably not going to be a playoff team, even though they're 7-4. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers that are hanging on by a thread, hanging around. There's a lot of teams. Buffalo only has 6 wins, right?
Mm-hmm.
They play the Falcons this week in New York. I think that defense could pull out a win. You're not beating Houston at home in New York without Aaron Rodgers. Then they're going to go play at Miami, which is probably a loss. But the last 3 games of the season are all not only winnable, they'll probably be favored in. Washington, at Cleveland, and at New England. I would like to see it. Call me a cheesy. I don't know. I would like to see it.
I mean, maybe he's trying to come back to show what they can be, right? But I mean, I don't know, man. That's tough. Achilles is not an injury to be played around with. I just, I don't get it. What's the logic behind it? Unless they're just, Aaron's like, shit, man. Unless he feels bad and he's like, I got to save their job, because it's, listen, in general, let's be honest. The Aaron Rodgers move was a desperation play, a Hail Mary, if you will, because if they didn't trade for him, they were fucking going after this year. There's no doubt about it. As good as Saleh might be as a person and a coach, they are attached to the Zach Wilson wagon. That simple. So if they don't have him there, that's their only buffer from not getting fired. I mean, I'm sorry. You can talk about all the other stuff you want, but when you whiff on your highest draft pick in history, that's a big deal.
Did Saleh whiff on him, though? Saleh's a defensive-minded coach. The GM drafted Zach Wilson. I don't know if I can blame that on Robert Saleh.
All right, but they also booted out Mike LaFleur, who did pretty well last week, right? Offensive coordinator, he was gone. That was his fault. So they're looking for, when you start kicking out scapegoats, eventually it's going to come to your doorstep. They already started that process when they ousted LaFleur. That simple. I mean, they started that last year. Whiffing on a quarterback that high is hard to come back from. And Aaron Rodgers was there. That was the solution. I mean, when you watch Hard Knocks, they were in love with this guy. They're like, the GOAT. They were calling him the GOAT. That's worse than Sirianni sometimes, and that's my coach. The GOAT. They're calling him the GOAT. I'm like, stop.
Maybe Mike LaFleur was the guy that wanted Zach Wilson.
Maybe, but I don't know, man. But you bring in a guy then, Nathaniel Hackett, who isn't known for working with quarterbacks and improving them. I mean,
they brought him to work with Aaron Rodgers. You can't predict him getting hurt the first game of the season.
You can't, but then you need.
I don't think any of that's his fault.
You still have to have a backup plan. They didn't have a backup plan. I mean,
that's from the GM. You don't think Robert Saleh was in the office saying, "Get me a quarterback"? You seen what we had last year?
Listen, I mean, how can PJ Walker come in and win games for the Browns? And that I would argue that the Cleveland and New York defense are on the same level. They even won games with the kid from UCLA, DTG.
Dorian Thompson-Robertson.
Yeah. So how come they can do that? Why? Because
that stinks.
Yep.
He was always going to stink.
PJ Walker stinks too.
PJ Walker's got experience in the NFL.
Okay, he's got XFL experience too, but then go get a guy like that. Tim Boyle shouldn't be your backup to Zach Wilson.
I agree. Trevor Siemian should be. And if not Trevor Siemian, Carson Wentz should have been there.
Somebody that could at least get the ball to Garrett
Robert
Wilson.
Griffin III should be there. Give me somebody. We got Thursday night football tonight. We always preview the Thursday night game, even if it's a stinker. This one might not be a stinker. Dallas is going to get their first win against the 500 team or above. 6-5. Seattle is playing against Dallas tonight. They're playing in Jerry World. No Kenneth Walker. The inactives are out. Kenneth Walker's out. The Eskridge, bunch of nobody else really of note for Seattle. But they are playing the Dallas Cowboys a week after Dallas wiped the floor with Washington on Thanksgiving Day. Playing in Jerry World again. The Cowboys have not lost at home this year. The spread tells you everything you need to know. It's 9.5. Dallas is predicted to absolutely blow out the Seahawks this week. I will say this. Tickets to Jerry World as low as $22 tonight. Go check out a primetime game for $22, whereas the Philadelphia Eagles tickets are as low as $247. That's kind of interesting, but just me, shameless plug. But your thoughts on tonight's game? Seattle at Dallas. Got to give a little credit to Deron Bland.
Mm-hmm.
Guys had 5 pick sixes this year, broke the NFL record.
Crazy.
It's incredible. Impressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do we think happens tonight? Stephen Chambers already starting us. Seahawks banged up. Dallas going to win by at least 14 points.
I think the Cowboys roll, and I think everybody that was talking crap about the trade with Russell Wilson, it's starting to turn back the other way. You got Geno Smith, and you got a seventh seed playoff berth. They're not going to go. They're going to be a mid team until they upgrade a quarterback, and that they're not going anywhere than they are right now.
I don't think the trade's going the other way. They got 3 first-round draft picks.
Yeah, but what has it gotten you? A 7th-round playoff berth?
Out in a few years.
We will.
First-round draft picks develop.
But you need a quarterback, and everybody was like, well, Geno's just as good. It took a little bit of time for Russell. You needed a coach. They've won 5 straight. They've beat good teams, by the way. Better teams than the Cowboys have beaten. The Broncos.
So just so you know, the Broncos got Russell Wilson and a 4th-round pick, which turned out to be Yami Uwazurike, who plays. The Seattle Seahawks got Charles Cross, Devin Witherspoon, probably the best young cornerback, Boye Mafe, Noah Fant, Tyreek Smith, Derek Hall. So they got 4 starters.
Wait. And Drew Lock.
Well, who cares? They got Drew Lock. He's not playing for them.
Got him, though. It's backup. Nice little backup.
Okay. I don't care if you got nothing back at the quarterback position. You got a bunch of starters. You're starting left tackle. You got your number 1 cornerback. You got your starting weak side linebacker. I don't know, man. That's a win to me. They're starting tight end.
Well, I'll put it this way: the meter comes back to the center if somehow the Denver squeaks in as the 7th seed in the playoffs. You got the same exact results 1 season apart, right?
Yes, but they can also replace their quarterback, and they still get to keep all those pieces they got in the trade.
I mean, yeah, we'll see. I thought they should have took one last year, but
I agree with you. But Geno Smith won comeback player of the year, and they wrote me off, and he didn't write back. Well, I mean, maybe he should write back. I'd write him off. He's looked terrible.
Yeah, DK Metcalf has been pedestrian, and that's because they don't let him throw the ball downfield. I mean, he averaged 8, 10, 7 touchdowns. He's at like 3 or 4 for the year. If you got a guy that can throw the ball deep, DK Metcalf becomes a monster. It's not there. That part of the game is not there. So I think that you might see a number 6 pick 6 from Deron Bland tonight.
Chris says you can only win the games on your schedule. Dallas will roll to 9-3 tonight.
He's right.
To really open up the wild card possibilities for teams like the Rams, Packers, and Saints. I agree with you. I think the Saints actually win that division, but that's I don't talking about a division nobody wants to win the NFC South. But I agree with everything that Chris said. I was screaming it last year when people kept talking about the Philadelphia Eagles not playing anyone and can only win the games on your schedule. I agree. But this will be the first win versus a team that's above 500.
Yeah, and that's a mid 500. That's what I'm not impressed by that. I mean, he's right. You can only play who you can play on the schedule. I agree 100%. I think strength of schedule is overrated when you predict who's going to win what in the beginning of the year. I think it's overrated because it changes so much over the season. But I understand where he's coming from. But at the same time, this team wants to punch up into the upper echelon, so you got to have signature wins. I mean, it's the truth.
Kyle, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I guess first off with Chris's thing, I agree with that, and also with Dallas rolling to 9-3, not really playing anybody. That's where it's kind of hard to hear a lot of people think that they're Super Bowl contenders because we've seen them playoffs past when they get against better competition fail. And beating up on lower tier teams this year shouldn't really change your mentality on them until they do it in the playoffs. In terms of the game, I mean, I think Dallas is the better team. I feel like with kind of what Godfrey was alluding to with the trade, I think the only thing that might be heading back the other way might be the narrative on Russell Wilson. I still think the trade for Seattle made sense because it seemed like that marriage needed to be broken up, and they got a lot in return. But people who thought Russ was washed might have to start thinking he still has a little bit left in the tank. But yeah, I just don't see how the Seahawks generate enough offense against the Cowboys defense tonight to make it interesting. I would love to see them keep the game close, but I just can't find a reason to justify that.
I like the way you polish it up for me, Kyle. I have to agree with the way you polish it up, and I agree with what you're saying. Gene mentioned all these nice pieces they have, and we've seen teams. The Jets tried to do it, where if you put a good quarterback in place, your team just makes leaps and bounds, and you're like, wow, these receivers can really play because they couldn't before because there's, you know what I mean? So I feel like if you're a Seahawks fan, yes, you have these pieces, but how long do you have them under that 5-year contract as a rookie? When salary.
You're still not trying to sell this that this was a bad trade for Seattle.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad trade. I'm saying it's coming back toward the center. It's not as lopsided.
I don't think it's anywhere. It's the most lopsided trade in NFL history.
How though? It's based. Part of it's based off Russell Wilson.
You got the same quarterback that did. One quarterback made the playoffs last year. The other quarterback didn't make the playoffs. Both teams are at the same record this year, and they got 4 blue chip talents for them. Are you serious?
But you don't. But I am serious because if you don't have a quarterback, that blue chip talent doesn't mean crap. You have to have a quarterback.
Denver doesn't have a quarterback. Russell Wilson stinks. Are you not watching their football games?
I am. He's played way better this year. That's crazy. He's played
better this year than he played last year. Is he anywhere near the Russell Wilson he was in Seattle?
He doesn't have to be there. They've won 5
worth 3
straight.
first-round draft picks? Devin Witherspoon himself is worth more than Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Okay, but that's great. But what I'm saying is all those nice pieces don't mean anything. You won't win anything without a quarterback. It doesn't matter.
So Seattle know how to get a quarterback and have parts already ready for them.
Unfortunately, there's not many quarterbacks hanging on a quarterback tree they could just pluck and then start in there. I mean,
I got news for you. If I got to start a game tomorrow, I don't know if I'm taking Russell Wilson over Geno Smith.
Oh, I am all day.
I don't know.
If I'm going based off how they're playing, I'm definitely doing that. I mean, listen, they needed a helmet interception from the Browns. Browns almost walked in there, and P.J. Walker almost won his 3rd straight with that Browns team in Seattle. I'm just not impressed by them. I mean, they got nice pieces. You're right. They get a good quarterback. They'll make a huge jump.
I just can't. You're right. They'll make a huge jump to get a quarterback. And then we'll look at the trade and say how lopsided it is.
You could, yeah. I mean, but if the Broncos make the playoffs,
isn't that one of the most lopsided trades you've ever seen?
I mean, I'd have to think back to some. I mean, I know like the Ricky Williams one with
Herschel Walker,
Saints, Herschel Walker.
I know. I'm just being a little
like recent issue. Like this is a trade that might be up there with those.
Maybe it turns out to be worse than a Herschel Walker trade, but all these guys would have to turn out to be Hall of Famers, and then he knew with 3 Super Bowls out of 4 years. Like the Cowboys one's hard to beat. I mean, it's
or Russ goes in the toilet next season, and it was just a 1 year kind of.
It's possible. I think Peyton's getting more out of him than anybody else would have.
Good for Sean Payton. I don't know. Still doesn't lead to you winning anything. Okay, so the Watson trade to the Browns is a pretty bad one too.
No.
Stephen Chambers is absolutely correct.
I mean,
yeah.
There's a lot of 2020 vision on that, though, right? A lot of people were like, well, that upgrades the Browns. I mean, and I don't think anybody thought Deshaun would be hurt or that bad as he hasn't been old Deshaun. I mean, I don't know. It looked like a good move for the Browns to get their guy, but it looks awful now. I mean, yeah. Ugh.
Revisiting that we can revisit that trade. That trade, it looks like they got Will Anderson Jr., one of the best rookies in this draft, They got Kenyon Green, starting guard. They got Tank Dell, who's been the emerging rookie wide receiver, and they still have they have a first-round pick next year and then a fifth-round pick going forward. So, yeah, the Houston Texans fleeced the Cleveland Browns. That's a great point, Stephen Chambers.
That's so one-sided that, the Browns are walking with one leg right now. So
So if the Seattle Seahawks go out and get they're not going to get CJ Stroud, but they go get a quarterback, it looks the same. It looks identical.
What's crazy is Stroud got picked at what pick last year? Was it 6 or 7?
3.
3?
Yeah.
Oh, they traded down and got Will Anderson.
Correct. They got Will Anderson. I think they took Will Anderson at 2 and they took Stroud at 3. It doesn't matter. When they went 2-3, they went back to back.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, let's get into this week. Kind of. There's not many good football games this week, guys. I don't want to be that guy, the bearer of bad news. There's not many good football games this week. Indianapolis versus Tennessee, yuck. The Detroit Lions, after blowing it on Thanksgiving at New Orleans, yuck. The Falcons Jets is borderline unwatchable. The Kyler Murrays versus the Pittsburgh Steelers is borderline unwatchable. Miami's going to run rampant over Washington this week.
Pickett's thrown for 400 yards now. They're fun to watch.
Pickett didn't go for it. Their offense.
Their offense. Yes.
Oh, man.
I do think it's hilarious that the first week McIntyre is out there, they hit that 400-yard mark.
Against a team that has nothing to play for. They
still only scored 16 points, too. So let's not pretend that their offense was a world beater, like a juggernaut this week.
Yeah, Pickett's not the guy. I'm sorry. He's just not. I haven't seen flashes of like, wow, okay, I really see something there. I don't ever remember seeing that him play. I mean, you put just a slightly above average quarterback on that team with Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. That's a problem. He just doesn't do the reads correctly. He doesn't make the right decision. I don't know, man. Canada's been a problem, sure, but Pickett's, I'm sorry.
No, you don't apologize.
But Tomlin still might get him over 500.
He will. It's what Tomlin does. Death taxes and the Steelers finishing above 500. That's your guarantees in life.
Yeah.
All right, but let's break down a game I think will be a good football game. The Denver Broncos are going against the Houston Texans. 2 teams 6-5, battling for that last playoff spot in the AFC. Is it Broncos country? Let's ride. They were 1-5. Now they're 6-5. CJ Stroud, after the just an inch short on the field goal kick, do they get back into the wild card mix? By beating the Denver Broncos. Spread's 3.5. How do you see this one, Kyle?
I mean, I find it hard not to pick Houston at home. I just think you look at the quarterback matchup. I like Stroud. I feel like even with last week, Houston, I believe, is the better team. I mean, Denver's going to make it more competitive than maybe if this game was early in the season. But I'll take Houston. I'll take the 3.5 as well. I think actually now think about it. I think I might take Denver, but Houston wins. I can see it being like a field goal at the end. So I'll take Denver to cover. Houston wins.
Okay. Godfrey, what do you think on this one?
I'm going to take Denver. And the reason, I like what Houston's doing. Very impressive. The league will adjust you. I think CJ Stroud's playing great. I'm not sure. I think they're on the cusp, right? And I'm looking at Denver's defense, and I know people want to they suck because you keep thinking about the 70-point game. But I just want to talk about, the recent games and their point totals. And this even starts with a loss.
Don't do this.
19, 17, 9, 22, 20. And Browns, let's not count them, but 12. Well, we won't count the Browns because, what they're playing against.
Yeah, but that's not fair what you're doing.
What?
Those
their
teams
defense hasn't been playing better?
No, they're not. They're worst rush defense in football.
But they won 5 in a row.
Right. So what? The
How can you say so what?
Because the Minnesota Vikings, who have one of the worst rush offenses in football, ran rampant on them. 36 carries for 175 yards.
And they'll get the rushing title. But what happened in that game?
Josh Dobbs threw the game away.
The defense has played a lot better than they have in the beginning part of the season. They have. They beat the Chiefs and the Bills. Those are good teams.
They played Miami next week in Miami. Miami would put our 60 burger on them. They instead of 70, they would get it to 60.
You might get to see that matchup.
I can't. Miami would love that.
Yeah.
Raheem Mostert, Devin and Shane, they would be like, this is amazing. Are you serious?
Yeah,
they can't stop anybody running the football. Even last week they ran for 4.9 yards per carry when Cleveland can't do anything but run the football.
That's a problem. But, Dameon Pierce I don't know what has happened to him. Devin Singletary's playing pretty good ball.
Yeah,
and I don't know what happened to Dameon Pierce. I thought he was going to be great this year. I really don't. I'm hugely disappointed in him. It's going to be a close game. I think that, listen, I think the Broncos I'm going with the hot hand right now, and they're finding ways to win. I don't know how, but they are. I mean, listen, Eagles are giving up a lot of defense, a lot of offense too, and they're finding ways to win. Not saying they're the same team, but I mean, a win's a win, man.
Could both of them get in the playoffs?
I think Houston will. I don't think Denver will.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, if I had to pick one, I'd definitely pick Houston. I mean, they do have some juice going. They're young squad. They're playing.
I love Miko Ryans, man.
Yeah.
I love what he's about. I love what that defense is doing. Trevor Lawrence had his way with them all day, and when they needed to make a couple stops on the stretch, they made it. I want to give them all the credit in the world. They got a lot of guys playing a lot of good football. Jalen Petrie has been incredible for their defense. Derek Stingley is a lockdown cornerback because he doesn't talk a lot. They don't talk about him. I told you Will Anderson Jr. is one of the most polished guys to ever come out of college football on the defensive side of the ball. They are good across. And that's not even mentioning Christian Harris, who's their leading tackler.
We got to give Lovie Smith credit for helping mold those two young men in the secondary, though.
Absolutely. You're talking about Petrie and Stingley?
Yeah. I mean, if there's a guy to learn from, that's the guy. So, just saying, and D'Amico Ryans is just on top of that, just amazing in general. I mean, we loved him here in Philly as a player when he was here briefly. Just, I'm happy for that team the way it's turned out for him. I mean, that is going to be. I mean, listen, you're right. That could be one of the most lopsided trades in history. I mean, the way they went into the draft and got Stroud and Anderson, I was just like, what? Remember, we were on air. I was like, I think they're going to trade up. And they stole that guy. I was like, wow.
We're doing that again this year. That was one of the most fun times I've ever had. That draft watch-along party was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I dig it.
Next game on the agenda. By the way, I'm picking Houston. I'll just give you a spoiler. Houston wins that football game. I guess we got to talk about it. Cleveland does have 7 wins. The Rams look like they are becoming the Rams, though. Kyron Williams got back, and that 5-6 Rams team is looking really scrappy. Back-to-back wins over Seattle, and now a blowout win over the Cardinals. They're playing the Browns this week in LA. Guys, got news for you. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell, Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams went over 200 all-purpose yards last week. Look like a man possessed. Tyler Higbee with 2 touchdowns. I love the Rams in this. I don't care how good that Cleveland Browns defense is. I don't care that the game is in Cleveland. Give me the Rams this week. Oh, the game's in actually LA. Yes, I apologize. So give me the Rams even easier this week. I love the Rams to beat the Browns. They're one of my best picks this week. Give me the Rams.
Part of me wants to go Cleveland for whatever reason. I mean, look, the Rams are. The Rams are like middle of the road against the run. Cleveland likes to run the ball. That's probably there's one saving grace. I think Cleveland leads the league in time of possession as well. So obviously that's going to be their way to win this game. I guess the quarterback position we'll have to see because Flacco might start. Could be DTR. Like, who knows? If it's Flacco, I'm 100% on the Rams. If it's DTR, I think the Browns have a shot. I'll go Cleveland. I'll be the guy. I'll pick Cleveland.
I love it. Go ahead, Godfrey. Join him on the ledge.
I'm reverse. I think if Flacco plays, they have a better shot than if DTR plays.
No, Amari Cooper don't look like either. So they're going to have a receiver for Flacco to throw the ball to. And I don't know. I guess I disagree. I think neither.
Well, Cooper, this just came in. Cooper said he'll play this week, and he was quoted as saying, watching Joe Flacco is like poetry in motion. Direct quote. Direct quote, not my quote. All right. I just wanted to put that out. I am not saying that. But, you know, in the quote I read, it says you'll have to forgive him. He's been playing with DTR and PJ Walker and sometimes Deshaun Watson. But, you know, I think Joe Flacco can get the ball to the playmakers out there. And don't forget, Joe Flacco had some success with the Jets with Elijah Moore. So there's a connection there. And they do still have a good run game. It's tough. I mean, the Rams dominated, but I still think Cooper Kupp is hurt and he's just trying to play. You know, listen, I'm going to go with the Browns on this one. You know, if Flacco plays, if he doesn't, I'm flipping going Rams. It's, you know, I need two predictions because I don't know who the quarterback is yet.
But looking at the injury report, it says Cooper's questionable rest. What is that about?
He has a rib injury. Didn't practice Wednesday due to it's a combination of rest and a rib injury. Limited return session to Thursday. Has him trending in a positive direction in Sunday's game against the Rams. Cooper plans to play this weekend, though unless the wideout is deemed a full participant Friday, he could carry the injury designation into the game.
I mean, for Cooper, list ribs, don't list rest. That just makes it seem.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, the Rams are on. It's a tough one, but being in LA too. I mean, I think Flacco gives them a little bit better of a chance. That defense keeps them in games, man. It's a shame if they actually got like good the quarterback play they expected from Watson, they would be serious contenders, I think, but they didn't. So there's that. They might make the playoffs. I mean, don't they have a pretty weak schedule going down the stretch?
It's very weak. I don't think Cleveland wins another football game.
Yeah, so I mean,
I don't care how weak the schedule is. I don't think they win another football game.
They've been pulling wins out their asses all year, though, man. I don't think they're. If they did squeak in the playoffs, they'd be one and done. Don't get me wrong, but who knows? Be a waste of a playoff spot.
Kansas City, primetime, 8:00 game at Green Bay. Brett Gardepy, our guy Brett, made his first bet in Wisconsin. He took the Packers plus 6.5. I tend to agree with him. I think it's going to be a closer game than a lot of people expect. I think that Packers defense is legit. They're for real. Watch them on Thanksgiving. They slowed down that Lions team at home. A little bit more extended rest. I think they keep this game close. I like the Chiefs in a close one. Give me the Chiefs 23, Packers 20.
I'm kind of there too. I feel like the Chiefs don't. I feel like every game with the Chiefs it's kind of close for whatever reason, and I do agree. You know, the Packers defense has played really well. I think the key is going to be, does Jordan Love protect the ball against that Chiefs defense? I think if he doesn't turn the ball over, then yeah, they have a definite shot. Not only keeping it close, but maybe pulling an upset. But yeah, I'll take the Packers to cover though.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers to cover I'll take, but I think the Chiefs are going to is this in KC or Green Bay?
It's in Packers. It's at Lambeau Field. Frozen Tundra, Sunday night.
Listen, man, the mechanics of Jordan Love bother me. His ball flutters. He doesn't set correctly in the pocket. There's just, you know, I don't see command of throwing from him, and I just really I'm looking at that game. I don't know what people aren't seeing. People don't admit it. Detroit secondary is god awful right now. Okay, god awful, and you know, injury, whatever it may be. I mean, you just got to look at the last couple of games they played, and I don't know if they're going to be able to repeat that against the Chiefs. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs to win this. I just maybe they cut. What is it? Plus 6.5.
6.5. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to take the Packers to cover, fine, but I think the Chiefs are going to win. I mean, you know.
So you agree with us?
Yeah, Chiefs are going to win. Yeah. I mean, listen, they were down 14-0 last week, and they turned it on. That simple. I mean, and I think that was their wake up call in their moment. They're like, "What the hell is going on? We just lost to the Eagles. Now we're 14-0 against the Raiders." And Rashid Rice was like, "Hey, I'm here. This is who I'm supposed to be." He had that big play. He's been getting better and better every game. And people don't realize this in an Andy Reid system. There's not the only receiver that I saw take flight year one was Deshaun Jackson. Nobody else has done that. It's a complicated system. You have to learn the system. Remember, Patrick Mahomes sat his first year in the league. Okay. That was a correct move by Andy Reid. So, Rashid Rice might be coming up there for him, and they might be hitting their stride. And, you could run on the Packers, and Isaiah Pacheco will eat.
Okay. Well, we don't going to take much time on Cincinnati, Jacksonville. It's in Jacksonville, Monday Night Football.
Jake Browning.
Cincinnati doesn't really have a quarterback. I'll take the Jaguars in that one. I'm pretty sure we're all on the same boat there.
I'm not even looking at the points. Jaguars.
Okay. We got to talk about the game of the week. We talked about a little bit on Birds Deep. Talked about a little prelude to the show. 49ers at Philadelphia. A rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. All the talking, all the words, they come to rest. We would have won the football game if Purdy didn't get hurt. James Bradbury's trash. All the talk, all the talk, all the talk. You better win. You better win. Because if you lose that football game, when the Philadelphia Eagles are missing Dallas Goedert, Lane Johnson's hobbled, they're missing their starting and backup middle linebacker, their starting slot corner, you better win the football game. You had 3 extra days rest. This is your Super Bowl. Remember that. You're favored in Philadelphia. You better win the football game. Kyle, how do you see this one taking place? 49ers at Eagles. Do we see another overtime thriller? A 15. Oh, by the way, before you get into it, I made this statement, and Cottrell gave me a lot of crap for it and thinks I'm being a homer. I want to ask you this question. Was that 59-yard field goal by Jake Elliott the greatest kick in NFL history in a regular season? Like kicking a 57-yard field goal in the Super Bowl, obviously, or a walk-off, like that's obviously more important. Vinatieri's kicking the snow, like that's obviously. But 59 yards in a torrential downpour, that or Tucker's 66-yarder versus Detroit in a dome.
I mean, even between those two kicks, I'd probably take the Eagles one over the Tucker kick. But
just making sure. I think there's the greatest kick in the regular season history ever.
I mean, you say that, I can't be like, oh no, it's this kick. I can't think of another one. So,
I mean, I guess I have to abstain from this opinion because you guys know where I'm going on this. But Tucker's was great, but you expect that from Tucker. But it was in a dome. I believe it was to win the game to Tucker, or was it at halftime?
No, it was incredible, man. That was the game where Lamar Jackson was about to lose to the Lions when the Lions had a bad start. They made a great pass to the sideline. They're thinking, like, we only have 4 seconds left. Is it going to be pitchy, woo-woo? What are we getting at here?
Pitchy, woo-woo.
And Justin Tucker got on the field and went nuts. By the way, what's up, Nick Hurtado? Hopefully you and Nico are listening in the family, bro. Appreciate the message. But what's your thoughts on that? Is it the greatest regular season kick ever? Am I being crazy saying that?
Because I can't think of another one. I'd have to say, yeah, why not?
Okay. Just checking. All right, so what do you think of this 49ers at Philadelphia Eagles game this week, Kyle?
I mean, look, based on what happened last year in the playoffs, it's a game the Niners need more than the Eagles. Because with the Niners talking a lot, feeling like last year they were robbed because of their quarterback situation. If they go into this game, fall flat, now you'd have to wonder, are the Eagles just in their head and they're just not good enough to rise up to the Eagles level? And if we head down the road again this year with the playoff matchup of those two once again, how the Niners going to go into that game, knowing they lost the playoffs last year, and if they lose this week, they're going to start thinking, we just can't beat this team. So for the Niners, they better win. I actually think the Eagles get it done. And, the Niners might have some more excuses to make We'll see. But I don't know. I just think that the Eagles are playing a little bit better. Obviously the Niners got back on track after their 3-game losing streak. So maybe they're getting the Eagles at the right time because the Eagles have a crazy stretch of games as well. And you figure they're not going to get up for every one of these games. There's going to be a letdown somewhere in there. But yeah, I'll take the Eagles. I just think the Eagles are the better team of the two right now.
Okay. By the way, schedule makers, I can't stand what they did.
Wild.
The Eagles play the 49ers. The 49ers have extended rest on Thursday night, and they play the Eagles on Sunday after Buffalo. The Eagles play Dallas next week in Dallas, and Dallas has extended rest. The most important games of the season, the Philadelphia Eagles have played on short week. Monday Night Football versus Kansas City. They have the short week versus Buffalo. Then you get the short week versus San Francisco, and then you have the short week versus Dallas. Like, come on, man. No one's talking about that because the Eagles keep finding ways to win football games. It's kind of bullshit. By the way, it's never happened in NFL history that this never happened ever in the history of football. When the schedule came out, the 5 teams that had the best shot to win the Super Bowl, the 5 teams that mathematically had the best odds to win the Super Bowl, the Eagles play them in back-to-back weeks. Dallas, Kansas City, Buffalo when the schedule came out, San Francisco, and Dallas. And Philadelphia was the 15th. Now, Cincinnati was tied with Buffalo when the season came out, but it's never happened in the history of football that you had the 5 favorites to win the Super Bowl in back-to-back weeks. That's craziness.
Like I said, it does speak to how impressive them finding wins. Even if they don't look great first half, they find a way in the second half to correct their issues and get the win.
Oh, do you hear the stat I put up on Birds Deep? The Philadelphia Eagles have set the NFL record for most consecutive wins versus teams above 500.
Mm-hmm.
That is a ridiculous record. That is absurd.
But it's something that could pay dividends in the playoffs. They're going to be battle tested more than anybody, and that's why if they are able to get the 1 seed and you have to go through Philly in the playoffs, good luck. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I feel like the Eagles are more battle tested than the Niners. There's definitely some injuries that kind of make things equalize. And the Niners are a good team, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of things that I just notice, and I just think I think the public, I think the media, I just think that they love this team for whatever reason. I mean, listen, like you were away, but Kyle, remember we were talking about like the Bengals-Niners game. How are they +4 underdogs? We just thought it was outrageous. Maybe some people don't. And we were like, lock that in all day. And I'm like, how? Is it? And it almost felt like perception. Is there like, well, the Bengals are really bad, and I'm just like, nah, I don't think so. And to me, they're underdogs. Yeah, all right. I get the data behind it, but I just don't see. When I'm looking at last year's game, I'm looking at this year's game. There hasn't been a lot of change to the roster. Hargary's on there. I feel like with Carter's a big upgrade. Jordan Davis is healthy. There's a lot of stuff that is going to go in each team's favor. But when I look at it, like they were whining about last year, their expectations were wildly unrealistic. There was never a quarterback in NFL history to lead their team to a Super Bowl as a rookie. Never has it happened. He was going to go into hostile territory and do it on the road. And I just think that they're really unrealistic as a fan base. And I just feel like Kyle Shanahan, until he wins the Super Bowl, is the modern day Marty Schottenheimer. And that's how I'm going to feel about him.
Oh, okay? I'm going to give you another stat, though, Godfrey. The San Francisco 49ers have played 3 one-possession games in the last 5 minutes of football this year.
Wow.
I don't count the Rams game because it was a 10-point game and they kicked the field goal to make it 7 points as time expired. So they never had a snap within one possession. They've played 3 games that were within one possession with 5 minutes left in the football game. 3 of them. What's their record in those 3 games?
0-3?
That's correct. 0-3.
Yep.
If not won a one-possession football game this season. So they better get up early and they better win the football game early because one team just finds ways to win and another team front runs. And if the Philadelphia Eagles get a lead Sunday, you better believe that 49ers team is going to be pressing. All that talk, you better listen, if they lose this football game, San Francisco just pack it in. Don't even play in the playoffs. Don't come back.
They're going to get it. And A.J. Brown's calling for...
We know they're going to get it, right? But don't come back. Because if you come back in the playoffs, I don't know. Like, they lose this football game, this is their Super Bowl. You can't lose this one.
Yeah, if they lose this one, they got to go to the playoffs hoping somebody else does the work for them.
Correct. Agree 100%. It's crazy to me to think this. The Dallas Cowboys have the best chance of going into Philadelphia and beating the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
I don't...
We both gave our score predictions on... I said 23-20 or 21-20 Philadelphia. I'm picking the Eagles to win this game just because I'm an Eagles fan. But I'll tell you right now, I think the 49ers win the football game. I really believe that. You can't go 16-1 in the NFL. It's not realistic.
That's true.
So I keep picking. They're not going to lose any of their final 3 games.
Right.
They played a Johnny DeVito.
Timmy Cutlets? What was his name?
I don't freaking know. Something DeVito. Tommy DeVito.
Tommy Cutlets?
Yeah. Any final thoughts? We got to wrap it up soon. We're not really up against it. We got enough time for a little final thoughts.
I mean,
the NFL.
Believe what your eyes see. That's all I'm going to say. I'm picking the Eagles to win. Obviously, call me a homer if you will, but I've been saying this all year for the same reasons, and they played out. When the Niners have lost, it's been because you can move Brock Purdy off his spot. Listen, people, you can't compare last week's game to the Bills game. Josh Allen is a freak of nature. He's going to extend plays, run around. So is Patrick Mahomes. Brock Purdy's not on the same level. He's one-dimensional. He's not multi-dimensional. That defense is going to get after him, plain and simple.
Kyle, any final thoughts?
No, just to reiterate what you said, Niners fans, you better hope they get it done this week. Otherwise, it may not happen. And the media would love to see these two teams go at it year after year and create the new whatever. Pats Colts or Pats Chargers used to be a pretty good playoff rivalry, but until the Niners win one, you can't have a rivalry.
My final thought is December 17th, Sunday Night Football, 8:20 Eastern Standard Time on NBC. The AFC will be decided as the Jacksonville Jaguars host the Baltimore Ravens. Jacksonville will not lose another football game outside of if they lose that one. They play the Bengals without a quarterback. They play the Browns without a quarterback. They play the Buccaneers, Panthers, and Titans. They could be 14-3. Let's give Dougie Peterson some credit. That's all we got this week.
Somebody saying the Jags might be the number 1 seed.
They could be. The road to the Super Bowl could go through Duval. But we got to wrap up. This is it. I'm the NFL genius, Sheen Walzak. That's the Prince Production, Kyle Edwards. That's Taking It Deep with D. Godfrey. And we are signing out.